This episode is brought to you by Americas Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the ARCast.
I think I'm convincing myself at this point, but all right, here we go. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the ARCast. My name is Buddha.
I'm Michaela.
And we are here again today with another fantastic episode. This is episode 29, believe it or not. Yeah, it's cool. We're getting close to the 30s. This is crazy. I can't believe it.
I know.
30-some episodes.
Insane.
We have our very first celebrity guest coming next week. Make sure you guys stay tuned. But today, guys, we have a very, very special guest. This is a good friend of mine. She worked as a behavioral health tech for the last year. I believe she's been with ARC, and now we're very grateful to have her as a part of our admissions department. Ladies and gentlemen, all the listeners out there, please give a warm round of applause to our friend, Nicole. What is going on?
Hi.
How you doing, homie?
Good.
That's awesome. I see you brought a very special guest with you today. Who's this
Yes.
gentleman we got right here?
Ryan.
What up, Ryan? Another applause. We're doing 3 today, back to back. Ryan is with our IT support team. He's here with us.
Hello.
It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
You too.
How you feeling?
Nervous.
Nervous? Yeah?
Yeah.
I swear the equipment makes you more nervous. 'Cause
Yeah.
I get nervous every time, and I'm like, this is the 30th.
It's
one.
really nuts, huh? Like
Yes.
it's like deer in headlights for some reason. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
So you're with our admissions department, which is awesome. I know you were on the floor for a minute. What
Yeah.
made you want to make that change?
I loved being a tech. I loved getting to interact with the clients and everything, but I just felt like it was time for something different, something,
Yeah.
with more responsibility a little bit. And I want to learn all aspects of what goes into a rehabilitation center. And so
That's cool. That's awesome. Are you in recovery yourself?
I am not.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. And what made you want to get into this type of a field?
My mom is in recovery. She celebrated 10 years.
Oh, that's
clean
awesome.
That's
year.
awesome.
Congratulations.
And she was the one who was like, I really think you should go work at this rehab, and I think you would be a perfect fit for it. And I got in touch with some of the people here and came and started working.
That's great.
That's great.
I know you say it about your mom. Do you have addiction on your father's side of the family as well, too?
Yes, my dad is still an alcoholic,
Yeah.
actually. So, yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
okay. Prayers to him. I think it's very similar. Our stories are very similar. My dad is in recovery. Shout out to my dad. He's been sober for years now, doing his thing. But I think it gives you a totally different perspective because Michaela, I know you're not in recovery either. But we're able to see it from a different point of view, especially as a family member, because we see our parents, we see our family, our friends going through this stuff, and
Yeah.
we have to be able to support them. And it gives you a certain amount of sympathy and understanding where you're able to relate to them from a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one cool thing about when I was a BHT, I got to sit with the clients, especially with holidays coming up.
Oh yeah.
It's really rough on them. And I got to share from my side of it. My brother actually was a client here at ARC when I first started. He was in IOP.
Oh really?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got to share with them, your family wants you here. They want to know you're safe. They want to know you're
Mhm.
sober. They want, to know you're not out on the street.
yeah.
And so that's the biggest gift that you can give them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually had a client that came up to me 6 months later that was like, you helped me stay by telling me that.
That's
so
awesome.
that was super cool.
So before you worked as a BHT here, what did you do prior to this?
I was a corrections officer for
Ooh.
almost 8 years.
Dang, corrections.
Yeah.
And what made you want to get into that line of work? Is that something you always have been interested in?
I got interested in law enforcement pretty young. I was working in the medical field growing up. From the time I was 17, I worked in the medical field for about 7 years and then finally made the plunge to go into law enforcement.
Wow.
And I thought you know, people think that like cops or, you know, in my case, corrections officers, like you think putting on this badge, these are good people and they want to help people. And that was my mentality on it, especially coming from being the child of an addict and alcoholic. Like I thought my life is going to be different if I go into law enforcement. And so I thought I would be helping people a lot more than what I actually was.
I could only imagine. Well, real quick, before we get into that, what did you do at the hospital? Were you like a PCT or?
I worked at a doctor's office as an administrative assistant for a couple years. I was working 2 jobs. I also worked as a caregiver for 7 years.
Oh, wow. And I'm sure that job taught you a lot too.
Yes.
You know, or were you dealing with elderly people?
Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot working. So the doctor's office that I worked at was actually a pain clinic. Ooh. So we had to drop people in order to prescribe their meds. You know, we had to drop people as clients because when they dropped, their meds weren't coming up in their urine the way that it was supposed to be. So I've literally worked multiple aspects of this field.
Wow.
So I've gotten to see, you know, that aspect of it where people are getting prescribed and I saw people who had surgery and got addicted or had something in their surgery go wrong and then they had to take pain pills for the rest of their life. So, you know, and then going into corrections, you see people coming in and out. The main place that I worked was the detox unit. Ooh. Detox in the jail is completely different than here. Detox at the jail, they're not medicated at all.
Really?
So these people are absolutely miserable and most of the time very violent because they're so miserable. Mm-hmm. And so most of my altercations were with people in detox.
Oh my, how many clients are we talking at a time?
So the unit I worked was pretty crazy because it was general population, it was administrative segregation, which was like, you know, the baby killers, all of that. Oh plus then detox. So we usually had anywhere from like 80 to the max I think we had was 118 inmates, and detox usually was anywhere from the 20s to 30s.
Wow.
And how many were you in charge of at a time? Did you have to take care of the whole unit?
So there was usually 2 to 3 of us working the unit depending on our numbers. So so if we had 120 inmates and 2 people in there, you can imagine, like, especially with people detoxing and stuff, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a rough world to come from. I mean, when I worked in the emergency room in the annex, we saw them when the police would bring them in and they would be combative or things like that. I remember one situation in particular where they had to actually intubate a client because he was being so violent and just so like disrespect, like he just wouldn't stop. There was nothing that we could do to keep him restrained. He was just crazy. So we actually took him to the ICU for them to give him medication to intubate him so he could go through the withdrawal process before they took him out of his medically induced coma for a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I mean, they would just go through this horrible. So I couldn't imagine, you know, at the hospital, we had that safety of the security and, you know, being able to medicate them and do things like that. I couldn't imagine what you experienced living in that world, not having any of those security barriers.
No, I was the security.
That's crazy.
I got into some pretty gnarly fights in there.
Dang.
Yeah.
Is there anything within the criminal justice system that you realized after you got out about addiction?
So this is the part where my mom was really like, I think you should go work at rehab, because I feel like I didn't understand, coming from a pain clinic and then going to corrections, I didn't understand. Like, I saw the worst of detox, right? I saw where they're violent and, you know, they're acting out and they're doing all this crazy stuff. And so I didn't get to see or be more empathetic towards them because I wasn't understanding it. And so I think that was a big part of coming here, is I got to understand the side of it more. All I saw was people, the same people constantly coming in, detoxing. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, you know, why do you keep coming back? I didn't understand, even though I was a product of my parents who were addicts and alcoholics and my brother's an addict. I didn't fully understand it.
Yeah.
And the mentality of it until I came to work here. I feel like it really, really helped me understand it more.
And it's interesting from an outsider's perspective. I mean, you have the two main types of clients that we see here are the ones that have, I mean, we've all experienced types of trauma and stuff, right? That's partly the reason of why we use in the first place. But you have the clients that have used illegal, street drugs and got hooked to like the heroines, the fentanyls, all of this. And then you have that population, the nanas and tatas, the people that were in surgeries and had, and then they were prescribed this medication from a doctor that they trusted that was supposed to be helping them and making them feel better. So you saw the end result of both of those. You saw it from the street drugs and from the medical part of it, but you never saw like the buildup and what caused them to use in the first place.
Right.
So do you feel like over the 8 years of working there, was there changes in your thought process? Were you starting to lose that sympathy and that empathy for them because of the amount of stress that you were under all the time?
Absolutely. I feel like I tell people all the time, my last year there, I was going through personal stuff, but also stuff with the admin. So, I was under a lot of stress, and it was like a black cloud. Like, you just work there so long, this black cloud starts to follow you. Ugh. And my ex-husband, he actually started in corrections first. And so he started in corrections. I started a couple years later. And I remember when he started, probably about a year in, it was like he completely changed into a different person. And, we separated for a while because of it, because he was just like a completely different person. And one of the older gentlemen who had been working there a long time told him, like, you can't let this place get to you. There's the devil in this place all around you every single day. Mm-hmm. And so if you take that home with you, like, it's going to take over your life. Like, you can't let it do that. And I feel like I was definitely starting to do that towards the end of my career there. Like, I just, you see the worst of the worst, and you're literally locked in this facility. We get to go home at the end of the night, but at the time I left, we were working 12-hour shifts. So you're literally locked in there too, not getting to see the outside or anything like that. And
wow.
Yeah.
And even being in the pain clinic too, I could imagine you dealt with trauma from that as well. Cause I know I worked in geropsych for 5 years, and the amount of people that would come that were just dumped on us, like people that had families, husbands, wives, grandparents, we're just dumped there and left there to kind of like rot away. And it really makes you start thinking. So I could imagine jumping from that type of a position as a caregiver, helping people that can't help themselves, and they've probably been in horrible situations. They probably don't have a lot of support, to going directly into a prison where, like you said, you're dealing with baby killers. Did you ever do anything for yourself to help you to keep you, to keep you sane during that time? Do you remember having like little rituals or things that you did for yourself?
At the time, like, I was really into the gym. So that was like my big focus was always the gym. Like, I would go every day before work. I think that was mainly it, honestly. Like, I don't really think I like took much time, and that's, probably a big fault of why things happened the way that they did. And I started feeling this black cloud was, if you don't take care of yourself, then obviously you're going to feel the aspects of the rest of it. But
remember when we had Coach Jay in here, and he was talking about how he had been to prison numerous times. His thing was complete opposite of what you're saying. He was saying that there's so much faith in jails because there was really nowhere else to go, right? Like, he's like, I was just at that end of my road where I was so depressed, feeling so much like shit, feeling just so down that the only way that I can go is up. And then hearing your perspective, it just really makes you see the difference,
Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's also like the flip side of the roles in there. Like, you're in with people who are literally at one of their lowest points because they're coming off of the drugs that they're on, and not being an addict, but knowing, my cousin who went through it and stuff, like, you're miserable, like, you're not happy. And like, so you're not seeing that other side. You're seeing the people coming through over and over and over again. And that's heavy. That's like having a friend who keeps making the same mistake and is devastated about it, and you're just sitting there watching them and you like want to bang them in the head with a frying pan to snap out of it, you know, like, and that's every day. Like, that's heavy. Like, I'm not a good compartmentalizer.
Yeah.
So I would for sure I would have had the black cloud early.
The faith thing was another thing. So you see people coming in detoxing over and over again.
Yeah.
And then you see people come into their faith and they start telling you like, I believe in God. They start reciting Bible verses to you and they tell you like once they get out there and do good and like all this stuff. So then you see them come back 2 months later and, doing whatever they were doing. And so then you start developing that like, okay, like anytime anybody says this, it's just bullshit kind of thing. Like you get into that negative mentality where it's like you see so many people fail at it and like come back that you don't believe it when people tell you anymore. You know?
Yeah, it can become, I feel like it can become all consuming, and it's, you were living it every day. And then can't imagine, and I watch a lot of crime shows, but I mean, not that that's real life, but because I don't watch the real ones, I watch the fake ones. But like, I could not imagine being like 1 to 40 or 50 as the ratio, like where you have 3 people with you and there's this, like I would be scared.
Well, and it's crazy too, because I didn't know this until I started working there, is that there's not many facilities where, I forget what they call it, but it's like your direct care. So you're literally in the housing unit with all the inmates. Like it's not like you're just walking up and down a hall. Like direct supervision is what it was called. So you're literally in the housing unit the whole time with them, dealing with them the whole time. It's not like the prison shows that you see where it's just like a hallway that you walk down and they come out and do whatever, like that's not how it was at all.
Which probably had you living on like high alert.
Oh yeah.
Like you would never tap out of that.
Yeah.
So,
they say the average life expectancy for a corrections officer is somewhere in there. I think it's like 54 or 56 or something. Yeah.
Stress and stuff.
So they can walk around, it's open, and they can just come up to you and punch you in the face.
Yep.
Has that happened?
Wow.
Yeah. I had one, she actually like spit in my face. And then it was hands on at that point, I had another chick who she got mad about something. It was detox and ended up trying to hit me, and we got into an all-out brawl. Somehow she got my hand in her mouth and was like biting my finger. I thought I was going to lose my finger. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I think I understand exactly what you mean when you talk about that black cloud. At the hospital that I was at, it was on the 2nd floor, and it was hidden from the rest of the hospital, right? And I mean, the whole hospital's, you walk in, hi, good morning. But then you get to my floor, and it's like metal doors, no windows.
Yeah.
Everything is, bolted up. And I remember walking into work sometimes, 12-hour shifts. I'm getting ready to badge in, and I just hear crazy screams. And I'm like, fuck, today's going to suck so bad, bro. Beep. And then I open the door. Hi, good morning. Like, I really do feel like that's something that we don't talk enough about, is the people that do work in this field. We have to be, everyone has the power to put on a small light in a dark room, right?
Right.
And that's our job every day. But once again, how do you take care of yourself?
Well, it's like they say, you can't pour into others unless you pour into yourself. And it's hard. And I imagine that those of us who are working in this field are generally people that are going to put others before ourselves. And that is hard. I started therapy, really proud of that.
That's
and
good.
she literally said to me, she goes, when do you ever do anything for you? And I was like, I'm planning Friendsgiving. She goes, for your friends. I was like, well, it makes me happy.
Right.
And she's like, no, but that doesn't count. And so it's like, we get used to this warped idea that we're doing something for ourselves, but we're doing it for someone else, and we're just exhausted. And so we're showing up and we're being here and we're putting on that smile, but we're not even 100%, even though we look 100%. And then by the time we get home, it's like, I just want to put on Netflix and numb out everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but now that you've come here, do you feel like you have like not the black cloud following you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the second I left county, I felt like that black cloud just lifted.
That's good.
A lot of people don't realize, like, there's sayings with like inmates or on the streets, like it's the same aspect on the other side. So like snitches get stitches, or like those things, right? So what a lot of people don't realize is like there's people in corrections and law enforcement who genuinely do want to do good, right? But there's only so much you can do when there's so much politics involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the huge battle for me was, certain things that people were doing that weren't okay. But at the end of the day, you can't say anything because it's going to come back on you rather than coming back on that person,
Yeah.
Like that was a huge aspect of me leaving. I had like a sergeant who was sexually harassing me for years and started like following me on camera, like all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's
and
so weird, man.
I finally confronted him on it and I was like, listen, this has to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to take it to HR. And he was like, all right, like do what you got to do, basically denied any fault. And then ended up like going to my lieutenant trying to get me fired basically. And my lieutenant, thankfully, I had a really good rapport with and was like, what's going on? Like he's coming to me saying this. And I was like, no, this is what's been really going on. And she was like, all right, you need to take this to HR. And I was like, I'm not taking this to HR because I know what's going to happen to me if I do. I'm going to get blacklisted. I'm going to get the label of a snitch. All these people are going to hate me, and then the harassment's going to be even worse because I'm going to get it from every angle then. And she was like, nope, you need to take it to HR. Think of all the other like women,
Yeah.
And so took it to HR. They ended up calling in a shit ton of people to investigate this dude. I'm talking like not only was he doing what he was doing to me, but he was like, making racist comments to officers. He was like doing all this crazy stuff. And they had put him on paid admin leave. Well, rather than firing him after they found him like guilty of all this stuff, they waited until his retirement date and let him retire with full benefits.
Such bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had so much dirt on command staff. They didn't want him coming for them. So
wow.
When that happened, I was like, and then, I'm told to do this. I don't want to do it. I'm blatantly clear I don't want to do it. And then I get a 3-way call with HR and the lieutenant later. So I'm kind of like forced into it, right?
He's on the phone with you?
No. HR and my lieutenant that wanted me to do it. So then after this, sure enough, sergeants won't talk to me. They start putting me in the shittiest places. Like I walk the hall and like I'm not even acknowledged by people. Like I had a lot of friends at county and like, it was just totally different. It was totally different after that. And I was like, you know what? Like if this is how it is, then I just don't even want to be here.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's just such a shame too because, I'm not like the biggest like, oh my gosh, women's rights, like marching and doing things. But there is something like in the workplace that happens where you just like feel alienated. And I felt it in multiple jobs. I mean, I was demoted at a job before this because I reported sexual harassment because they didn't want me to be in the room with who was sexually harassing me so that I could feel comfortable. And I'm like, but you're bringing me down
right
so that he can stay there.
Right.
And it's just like so crazy because it's just like untouchable, the politics. And it's like you don't want to say anything
right.
and then you're twisted into saying something and it makes you feel worse
right.
afterwards. You're like, how am I supposed to even
because then you're just
feel
treated
better
differently. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, working in corrections, I've heard the worst of the worst. Like you could call me any name in the book and I don't get offended by anything. Like I can joke around with guys, like whatever, but this was like a whole another level to it. You know what I mean? Like when you're following somebody on camera, he was not only making remarks to like other corrections officers, he was making remarks to inmates about me, and like inmates were telling me stuff he was saying about me, and I was like, this is like unbelievably unprofessional, like insane.
Well, and how do you feel safe at work when that's what you're facing? And you can't take care of those that you're there to protect when that's what you're facing. And it just, then it takes out the whole reason you were there in the first place.
Right.
And it's crazy that you even said that they were even having some of those politics, the snitches get stitches. Like,
oh yeah,
we're not fucking inmates, bro. We're supposed to lead by that example. They should be encouraging. If you feel unsafe, you're already unsafe working in this environment. Please speak up, talk about it. and not befriending the inmates and talking to them like they're friends. And like, I just can't believe that. That's crazy to me.
And it was like, the women like in command staff, it was very catty. So it's like, if they didn't like you, you're on the shit list. If they like you, then your career's made.
You can do no wrong.
Exactly. And it's just, and that's like, the battle that you're going through every day on top of being in a room with 120 individuals who hate you and want to whoop your ass. Like, it's just, it was very, very stressful.
Well, it probably made you feel super isolated too, because you're going there to show up in this already vulnerable position, and then you don't even have the support of those people that you should have. Like,
right. Yeah.
Crazy. You lasted way long. I probably would have crumbled on day one.
Yeah. I honestly, like in the beginning, I really enjoyed the job because I wasn't listening to like the outside noise. Like I wasn't hearing the politic aspect of it. I wasn't, I was just kind of keeping to my own. It wasn't until like years in that it like all started. I was like, okay, this is how it is. Like,
man.
Yeah.
My brain is racing, dude. Hold on.
I feel like I'm in a TV episode. Does anybody watch The Office where Harvey Specter's got his like buddy in jail?
I get shit all the time because I've never seen The Office, but I love Seinfeld.
Oh wait, no, it's not
I've
called
never
that.
seen
It's
The
called
Office
Suits.
either.
Sorry.
Suits?
Okay.
I haven't seen that one either.
Scott watches The Office. I don't. He wants me to, but it's called Suits. Yeah.
So, Nicole, so you feel everything that you went through and everything that you experienced, it all helped you grow and brought you to where you're at today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So for anybody who may be listening, I think this is very important. What advice would you give to a young lady, somebody who may be listening that may be dealing with the exact same type of thing that you were experiencing and may be afraid because of what other people are going to think? Or
I would say at the end of the day, do whatever you feel is best. Don't listen to anybody else. Like if, and there are other jobs out there.
Yep.
Like that was a huge thing. I felt so tied to this job. Like this was my career. This is where I was going to retire. Like I had to stay and tough it out. You don't have to. There's much better jobs out there and you can find them. I promise you that.
That's great. Sure. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you started here with ARC. And did you fall in love with this part of it, the rehab part of it?
Yeah. No, I really did. Like I was telling Ryan the other day, I was like, I kind of miss being a BHT and just getting that client interaction. And like admissions is cool because you get to bring people in and you get to be kind of like their first person that they speak to. So hopefully like they feel comfortable coming here. And, like that's my biggest thing when I'm talking to people is I want them to feel like they're cared for, but like getting that client interaction, like anytime I'm going to my office now, like I get the IOP clients like, Nicole. And
that's
I'm
cool.
Like, hey,
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you get to meet them when they're super vulnerable too, because you guys do the clinical assessments on them, right?
Yeah.
So you guys got to ask them all of these questions and get all of this information from them.
Yeah.
That's great. Working here now, learning what you have learned about addictions and, just having like that backstory, like we talked about earlier. Now you understand about the trauma, the things we experience, having that empathy and that sympathy towards it. Has it helped you with your relationship, like with your mom, with your family?
Yeah, it has. I mean, I feel like mine and my mom's relationship is always like a work in progress because of our past, because of her addiction problems and her alcoholism. And like, that's put a lot of strain on our relationship over the years.
Yeah.
So I feel like probably around the time I started working here, maybe a little bit before, I started feeling more empathy for my mom and realizing like my mom doesn't talk about her childhood or anything with us, but starting to realize, okay, like you didn't have the best upbringing. Like this wasn't on you. Like you didn't have the right role models. You didn't have, And so I feel like that has definitely increased since working here. And then my brother, obviously. So the first time he started using, I completely cut him off out of my life. And I was like, if you're using, like, I'm having nothing to do with you, like, whatsoever. And this last time, I feel like I was more empathetic and I was able to have boundaries, but still have a relationship with him and understand that this is an addiction, and hopefully he feels comfortable coming to me when he wants help, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then he did, and like we've kept that relationship through his recovery so far. I feel like it's hard for a lot of people. Like my sister still won't talk to my brother.
No.
And so it's hard. You have the different aspects of it, like the hurt and all of that. And like I just felt like this time around, like I wanted to make sure that like I have that relationship with my brother, that he has somebody that he can talk to, even if we're not talking every day or anything like that, like where before I just cut him off kind of thing, So I definitely feel like it's helped me in my relationships with them and like learn more about what they're going through, what they've been through.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important. I mean, the last few episodes I've thought about, what would I do if, I found out my kids were using or something was happening. And I know because my mom, I love you, Mom. I know you're listening to this. She's used tough love on me because for my ass, it was necessary. Stubborn, hard-headed as hell, bro. Super stubborn, super hard-headed. But I think about it, and I've heard a few people, we talked about Coach Jay earlier. This is another thing that makes me think about him. He said that had his wife completely cut him out when he was going through his hardships, he doesn't feel like he would have pulled out the way that he did. And like you said, having boundaries, but still being that support system, I think there's that fine balance that we don't always think about. We're either on one end of the spectrum or we're not.
Right.
And it changes a lot. You start seeing things a lot. Even our brother Kevin, man. I love Kevin. If you're listening, shout out to our boy Kevin. He's changed crazy amounts since he's been here. You know what I mean? It's just you start learning it a lot more. And hearing your story, it's making, like I said, my head has just been racing because I start thinking about my dad. It's the same thing. Found out recently that my dad is one of 25 siblings.
That's insane.
One of 25, and we've tapped into his childhood a little bit. And I remember one time he was talking to me a little bit, and then I showed interest, like, really? That happened to you? And he like looked at me, shut off completely. So I'm like, all right.
Yep.
Just gotta tread lightly, but also with love and understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually feel like I have a good question to tap into because being on the admission side, obviously I work a little bit closer with you guys. But what would be one thing that like you could say to someone that was maybe considering it, that's like maybe a theme? Like some people could be sitting here listening, like just getting ready to pull the trigger, but they could be nervous, like to just like make that phone call, like because it's like you hear the people, the first person that they talk to, your first connection. So it's like, are people nervous? Like obviously that would be a normal thing to feel, to be nervous, to call in.
Yeah, I think they're nervous. I also think like a lot of them are unsure. Like they go back and forth for sure on the decision. I think the biggest thing is like, do you want to get clean? Like that's the biggest thing because nobody, if their family is pressuring them to do it, they're going to come and they're going to leave. Like they have to make sure that they really want to do this and that it's, and for me, the ARC has been such an amazing place and I've seen how many people it's helped. And so I always tell people like, this is the place to go. Like if you really want to get clean, like this place can help you. Like you have, the staff here is just so amazing. Like everybody from the therapist to the BHCs, like even the people who aren't in recovery, like we have family who's in recovery or we know people or, it's just such a great place to come get help because everybody here genuinely cares about helping you.
Which I think is such a like a good reminder to people that are like maybe on the fence is one, it has to be your choice, but two, like we're going to meet you where you're at when you get here. You don't have to like come here and have it all together. That's why you're coming here. Right. Because you don't have it all together. And I mean, I'm not in recovery and I still don't have it all together. So So it's just part of life.
And I think regardless of, and this is one thing that I've learned over the years is whether we're in recovery from drugs or not, we're all in recovery from something. You know,
Yeah.
we either let, you know, the anxiety or the depression take control, or, you know, we have food addictions, you know, drinking addictions, you know, some people are workout junkies. And I think there has to be that thing of like, you know, helping you stay rooted. That's where faith comes in for me.
So when I worked for the church, we started Celebrate Recovery, and I was like one of the people helping run the show. And so we had to wear these like Celebrate Recovery t-shirts. And I was like younger, you know, in college, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, all my friends, they're going to judge me because I'm wearing the Celebrate Recovery t-shirt and I'm like out drinking on the weekends in college. And then my pastor opened the service and he said, we all have a hurt, a habit, or a hang up. And it does not have to be drugs or alcohol for you to celebrate your recovery. Like, I'm a shopper, like a bad one.
Well, and it's crazy because it wasn't until I had this therapist, and like I've had therapists on and off throughout my life, right? And it was this one therapist that everything she said to me just like stuck with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it at the time. She's like, you're no better, because like my mind when I was younger, okay, was always me and my brother, right? And it's like, I don't understand why he's an addict. Like, why did he choose drugs and all this stuff? And like, you know, we had the same upbringing, but yeah, I'm not an addict. And she's like, you didn't develop an addiction to drugs and alcohol, but you developed other addictions. You developed addictions to toxic relationships because of your childhood and this and that. And I was like, oh,
right there.
Okay. And that has stuck with me ever since, because it's like, you think, especially being a kid of an addict or an alcoholic, that you didn't develop the addict tendencies. And then when you really look at yourself and you really look at your life, you're like, I did. I just developed it in different areas.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Crazy.
That's
It's
real
crazy
right
to
there.
think of it that way, but it's so true. And like, there's just so many things that you don't realize that like could make you comparable to somebody else.
Right.
Like, we all
Right.
have stuff in common. It's just that our like vices are different.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming through. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Nicole. Give it up for Nicole one more time. All right, everyone, relax, please. Calm down.
Thank you to Ryan for joining.
Thank you. I that was a blessing right there. I appreciate it, because I know I have family that's not in recovery that listens to this. I don't know if Michaela's has people listening to, but I think it's very important, and we don't touch on it enough, you know, from that perspective. So thank you for coming, and Ryan, thank you for coming too, brother. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the ARCast. We hope you guys have a beautiful day. Much love. God bless. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the ARCast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody you need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the ARCast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.